disagree with. You guys are welcome to disagree. I do this usually in the first lecture, but don't take anything I say for granted. Doubt everything I say. And I'll try never to say anything without showing you some hard evidence for it. And that just goes not just for this class, but your entire academic career in your life. Doubt everything. Make people prove to you what they're saying. And if they can't, then you have a choice to make. Do I find this to be true or verifiable, or do I want to reject this? Because of what you believe about not just Jerusalem, but about issues of faith or issues of politics, if what you know about that is only what someone's told you, a parent, a grandparent, some figure of authority that you trust, then that will never become your own. If it's faith, it'll never be your own faith. If you want it to be your own faith, you have to discern it for yourself. Test it. Ask questions. If God is who God says He is, He can handle a few tough questions.
Religion isn't just something that you have in your head. Religion is part of your identity, especially when you're raised in it like I was. I always considered myself to be growing up in a traditional Christian household. But we didn't consider ourselves to be fundamentalists. I didn't know any better. I just knew that we were in the churches of Christ. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, but I didn't think much of it as a kid. I just knew that we were Christians and we were very keen on learning the Bible. My father is one of the most reliable people. I mean, the guy never misses a day of work. My mom was a teacher. She was raised out in a small farming community out in Central California. And she was in the Churches of Christ. My dad converted into it. And he, there's no zealot like a convert. So once my dad converted, we were very strict in the house. And so I was raised, there are things we do, there are things we don't do, and we don't talk about things. We don't talk about our feelings. So there wasn't a lot of communication. There was just an expectation. And this means that you grow up afraid. You grow up with a very tangible fear, not just of your parents, but of God. And so the fear factor about religion was very real. What happens if I do something I shouldn't do? Am I gonna go to hell? Is that gonna burn? How is it gonna be forever? What happens if I disappoint my parents? I would say that growing up, I was more afraid of going to hell than I was excited about going to heaven. When I'm getting into high school, when I'm getting into college, and I'm learning to think for myself, I'm learning to think critically, I'm learning to read things critically. Scientifically, I'm learning scientific method, and everything else in my life, with any other text, I'm taught, look at the evidence, weigh the evidence, evaluate things, and then make a decision, an informed decision. And as I would do that with the Bible and start to ask very simple questions, I would be told, oh, just have faith. So there began this cognitive dissonance where the rest of my life and every other aspect of my life, I was told, think for yourself, be smart, think critically, do your research. But in my religious side of my life, it was just believe. Don't do those things with regard to religion. And this is when I decided I have to go answer these questions. I am so afraid. I'm so afraid to actually continue in my life without answering these questions. It so consumed my thought. Am I going to have problems if I continue to do this with every other aspect of my life, but don't answer these pressing questions about religion? So I applied to Pepperdine, which has an MDiv program, your typical seminary program, and I did everything but the theology. I wanted the toolkit first. I wanted to learn languages, I wanted to learn history, I wanted to learn archaeology, and the more I did that, the more I realized, oh, there's an entire world of critical scholarship out here. And so as I learned the languages and began to read it for myself, I was like, oh, that's not what it says at all. Oh, there's issues. Oh, I see. And it's when I did that I realized I've got to make the transition here, that I am not this next generation of conservative Christian leader. I was like, this isn't me. What I can say is it was scary. It was a process. And it was at UCLA where I really got the toolbox, the theory, the languages. And so I was already into teaching this language and studying this word, I said, I'm going to continue to teach this material, but I'm going to teach it from a critical standpoint. I'm going to teach about its importance and its origins. And I committed myself to basically teaching the value of a knowledge of the Hebrew Bible, a knowledge of biblical studies, a knowledge of a critical approach to this. I try to pick certain stories from the classical world, from classical mythology, from biblical studies, that communicate the kind of principles that I think are important. It's important to learn these stories, and it's important to learn them at a state university from a critical lens and not from a theological standpoint. Biblical literature is completely inundated with the American experience. And so people should know it from a critical standpoint, because if you learn it from a theological school, they're going to try to teach you the doctrines. They're going to try to teach you the theological messages. We're not trying to do that here at Iowa. We don't touch theology. What we're trying to do is show you how we got the literature that we have, why it was received from generation to generation, and why it's important as literature. That's the way we want to teach it to the students, and then they can use those stories how they want to use them. When I teach, I need to think about the kid that's just like me. I need to think about that young kid that grew up in that small town who doesn't know anything else but what their parents and their pastor, or their teacher, or their rabbi taught them. Because I was that kid. I was the kid sitting in the class saying, do I even want to continue in college? Do I even believe any of this stuff? Am I here because my parents want me to be here? And so because I like teaching, and because I'm always sympathetic to the me that's sitting out there, I had these questions that I wanted to ask, but I was always afraid to ask them. Who can I trust? So I always want to be an authentic professor who the students can trust. This is a guy that's up there telling dad jokes who, I can trust this guy, because if he can get up on stage and just tell stories about himself and just be wide open, and then I can maybe go to him and talk to him about the problem that I'm having with who I think I am, or my identity, or my questions about faith. And I just want to be that gentle voice, that soft landing that says it's going to be okay. And sometimes that's all you need. You need one person that you trust at college, that one random professor who always dresses in the same thing, just a different color. This guy that's so random, who tells these goofy ass stories. And yet, I trust this guy. He's so authentic that I think I'm going to trust this person. That's what I hope to be.